Hello, a very good evening, and Dinky-Doo. How are you, my hearties? It's Scottie McClue saying Dinky-Doo just for you. Yes, welcome to our Saturday night. 1 hour of superb, scintillating information, education, and entertainment, not just for one nation, but of course for all the nations of the world. Welcome, welcome, I say, and a very, very good evening to you. And when you're coming on, of course, remember to tell us exactly where you're watching from. I think that's important as well. Here we've got Tuts Wahay. Good evening, Scottie. Good evening, Tuts Wahay. How lovely to have you with us. Did you get your notification that McClue would be live at 9 o'clock? I tell you. So there we go. Lots to talk about tonight, so little time to do it in. Jerry, Heidi, hi, Scottie. Now, Jerry, I hope you're going to phone tonight and come on and sing us a wee song, because I sang a wee duet yesterday with a brilliant organist, and you said don't give up your day job. So I want to hear the master at work. So if you wouldn't mind giving us a ring and sing us something down the phone, it can be anything, Baba Black Sheep or whatever you think, and then we can judge and either decide if you should give up the day job or if you should press on. You see, that's fair, isn't it? That's only fair, I tell you. Good evening, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome. If you've just joined us, you're watching Scottie McClue, the world's top broadcaster, the world's most humble man, and of course, the first lord of the internet, hashtag FLOTI, all in uppercase, FLOTI. Now, I've got my trusty water with me, very, very important. And what we'll be doing every so often is having a general sup. So I want you to be ready for a general sup. Good evening from Derbyshire, Mr. McClue. Much respect to you. And God bless. Absolutely. That's the wonderful Roy Michael. Roy Michael in Derbyshire. Bakewell over Haddon. You can't. Derbyshire, absolutely. Buxton, the Opera House. How amazing is that? I used to tour. I just did a case of premature sup. I'm very embarrassed. Oh, I wondered what you were going to say there. And so you had a sup before it was a general sup. Well, I think you could have capped that off, Tuts Hay, with a general sup, and that would have been two sups. I tell you. Now then, who else have we got here? No, please don't be embarrassed. Professor Nupty Scottie, stop talking nonsense. Now, Nupty that's what we call a spurious claim. You know very, very well. In fact, I doubt there's a person on this earth, on this planet, who knows better than you that McClue has never, ever, 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 ever talked nonsense in his life. You must not assume that everybody has your lifestyle. Do you see what I'm saying to you? So there we are, always talking sense. Absolutely. A lot of interesting stuff. I've uploaded some new movies for you on the channel, so make sure you're watching these. Some of them are, well, all of them are absolute crackers, but some of them are really quite outstanding, and your chances of seeing them elsewhere are quite slim. So there you are. So we're becoming very big as a movie channel and also as a live talk channel. I've got so much to talk about. I'll tell you one of my favorites that I was just becoming aware of. Well, no, I've been aware of all my life, but was becoming very much more aware of this life, is what has really been very bad for this country in the past. And you know, the government are talking now about inheritance tax on farming. And I thought there shouldn't be any inheritance tax. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this, and you'll see where I'm coming from. And it's not pro the wealthy. You need to have a big, big, big mind to take on board what I'm about to say to you. Over the years, this country's gone through different phases, as all countries do. We had the Crusades in the 11 and 1200s, and then also the lands being divvied up by the king and given to the nobles, or the people who became ennobled, who had served the king well, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, the Agrarian Revolution took off in England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales. Yes? So there we go. Separate countries at the time. Agrarian Revolution. What do I mean by that? Agrarian, agriculture, farming. So the money was all in the land. So the more land you can get a hold of, and the more husbandry, there's another cracker for you. The more husbandry that you could perform on that land, including animal husbandry, this was what fed and clothed the nation. Now, what are your essentials that are being thrown up at you today that you need? Food and clothing. Also, housing. But if you're out working all the time, then you're really just needing somewhere to lie your head at night. So what happened is everybody was tilling the soil and feeding the beasts. And what you then had was all the skins and the leather and the hair, horse hair for your mattress, cow hair, duck down. Duck down for stuffing your feather bed, blah, 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 blah. Yes, all of that. Chickens to eat, pigs to eat, cows to eat, sheep to eat. Yes, you can't eat the foxes, but hares, rabbits, all that. So people could get fed and clothed from the land. You were importing nothing. Now, the ones that owned the land made a lot of money out of this, and the only way you could spend your money was to build a bigger house. And see if you could build a bigger house than everyone. And this takes us into the time of Pride and Prejudice. Jane Austen, right? Not Austin like the cars. Jane Austen, around the times of about 1850, 1820. And you had a good going agrarian revolution going, and there was big, big money about. And of course, that fed all the tenant farmers and the serfs and everything. So again, you had food and clothing. Tremendous stuff. And that's what Britain did. And with that, Britain then started to take over other countries and run the world. It was called the British Empire. It's not too popular with the Wokies, but every country then went on to have an empire. I mean, you had the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, the Russian Empire, the Prussian Empire, the Dutch Empire, the French Empire, the Belgian Empire, very vicious one that. So you had all of that going on. Now, then you had the Industrial Revolution, and all the machinery came in, but they also brought machinery for ploughing and reaping and sowing and threshing. And you had your big barns full of farm produce, so serious money. But the money was moving into the towns and the cities with the mills. Then you had the mines, you had the steelworking, the shipbuilding, the supplying of the coal. 75% of the world's coal supplied by Britain. So you had all that going on, and then you brought in democracy, 1832, the Reform Act, and then right through till the women had the vote. Yes, then enfranchised. So you've got all that going on, and that was where the money is. Now we've lost all that, and if you look closely through inheritance tax and death duties, now a lot of aristos don't live past 60, right? So that means that say their son's 30 by that time, that means every 30 years, every 25 years, you might be getting more death duties. Now, these big houses, and I don't mean you to burst into tears for them, but these big houses had to then sell off treasures, sell off assets to pay the government death duties so the government could fritter the money from the big estates. So what happened was they found out, we want a good few thousand of you in things, rates, council tax. So the landowner said, just take the roof off the big house. Yeah. And then sometimes the big house went on fire. And being out in the country, you couldn't get the fire engines to it. So you know this, and it burned to the ground. Anyway, long story short, Britain has been losing its assets to greed and unthinking and politics of envy. Now, these people that had the big houses were no longer rich. First World War clobbered it, clobbered the heirs, all that. Then the 1920s, the Great Depression, then late 1930s, another world war, more people killed, more big houses lost. So we've been losing our assets. We've been selling off the family silver through greedy governments. The money's no longer with these estates. The money's in the big corporations. So any successive government that needs money should go after the corporations. But they're far too clever. They say, no, we're just taking the money from Britain, and then we're taking it abroad and offshore and paying our tax somewhere else. You see? And there should be rules. The government needs to grow up here and get stuck in and say, no, you need to pay your tax in this country. That's where your income came from. All right? So you look at the supermarket in your little village or something like that, taking all the money from the village, sending it down to London, counting it up, and putting it offshore. Right? So it's not going back into the village, where when you had all the village shops, up until the 1970s, 1980s, the village shops, all the money went back into the village. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker would spend in each other's premises. Yeah, so that's what's wrong with our economy. Now, enough of that rant over. Scottie, you should run a competition on your show. First prize is a week in the Bahamas with McClue. Second prize, 2 weeks in the Bahamas with McClue. Good one, Numpty. We love it. I once won a week in Rothsay, and I was there for years trying to win one back. Star Wars Empire, but admittedly, that was far, far away and a long time ago. Absolutely touch me. But now that I've got that off my chest, I'd like you all to just ponder that. So when you see these huge houses, the people that own it probably don't have any money because things have changed. Agrarian, industrial, technological, white heat of technology, all that moving on. The money's no longer in their hands. Let's not lose every single big house. Don't sell off the family silver, governments. Have a word with them. What about third place, says Susan? DJG Belfast. Belfast says, hi, Scottie. Hello, D. What do we got again? Jenny Nichols says, great movie on today, starring Spencer Tracy, Burt Lancaster, and the captain of the Star Enterprise, Mr. Shatner. But what's the movie, Scottie? Made in 1961. Right, Jerry, you've got me here. Could it be The Trials of Nuremberg? Yeah? Something to do with, is that the right title? Something to do with Nuremberg. When you mentioned Spencer Tracy, he was the judge, if I remember rightly. Are you up for a call, Scottie? It's Tupsway. Always up for a call, Tupsway. I tell you. Right, you ring away and let's chit-chat. Tupsway is coming on, guys. Wonderful. Have you got the number, Tupsway? Hey, I've got it here. If anybody's wanting to call. There we go. You're live on Scottish phone in. Who's that?
Oh, guess who?
Oh, you've got me there. I'll have to have a think.
It's Lieutenant Commander Tulsa, but you know you're
2.5. 2.5 tops for hay. Did you get that?
2.5? No, I don't get that. What
2.5. Lieutenant commanders are 2.5. 2 rings and half a ring. I wondered if you'd got the reference.
No, I actually thought it might be a typo. I thought, I've got to confess something to you, Scottie. I'm not an actual lieutenant commander.
Oh, I know, and you had me going. Even although you didn't know what a 2.5 was, you still might have been.
I'm a poser. I'm not an actual military man. I just pretend that I know lots of things about that.
A 2.5, no, see, a lieutenant commander would be a 2.5. And when the Navy, what's it you call it when they take over a ship? Requisitioned. When the Navy would requisition a small boat during the war, you had lieutenant commanders in charge of small vessels.
Well, that's why I like lieutenant commander, because you're the nearest an officer gets to being a working man. You know.
That's right. That's right. 2.5. So what you would find in the likes of the Cruel Sea, maybe number 1 would be a 2.5 when played by Donald Sinden. Of course, you might, if the ship's big enough, because they were corvettes. The Compass Rose, I think, was a corvette. And remember, he talked about hello, number 1, you know, and all that. Now, have you seen the movie? Have you seen the Cruel Sea?
I love the Cruel Sea. It's got that wonderful line. It's like, it's quiet, Captain. Yes, number 1. Too quiet.
Too quiet. That's right. And they're listening. Bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah.
You know?
It's really good. And the man there, posh. Well, my grandfather was a sailor in both world wars.
Yes.
He referred to it like he did not like the officers. He referred to them as naval pigs.
Naval pigs?
Yeah, he did. It's just like, for example, they sailed out of Greenock, and they would play "There'll Always Be in England" over the time.
Oh dear, yes, as there'll always be in England as long as Scotland's there.
Exactly. But I was going to say, excuse me, I was going to say to you, I watched, I missed the stream on Wednesday. Well, no, the thing is, it was my birthday on Wednesday, and Mrs. Tupsway took me to Cumby, to Millport. I was not a disgrace. I behaved myself when I'm drunk, but my goodness, I was far too drunk to be coming to your internet house.
Not at all. You come on here. It's all we'll pull you up if you transgress.
if I'm in my cups.
If you're in your cups were here.
Cups were here. That's actually constant. But I was going to say I was watching the stream, and you mentioned that you had done a puppet show before.
Yes.
And you did a Gretel voice. Now, I'm going to have to ask you, Scottie, please never do that voice again. It absolutely killed me.
Yes. Oh, Hansel, hello.
Oh, no.
Oh, hello, Gretel. Oh, Hansel. What shall we do? What shall we do with the witch?
Somebody quick put them on a list.
Well, it was Humperdinck's Hansel and Gretel. Dee, you know, and it was a full puppet show, and apart from the witch, and the oven was all painted back cloth, and we flung the witch into the oven. It went off with a sort of woof like that, and you know, a bit of stage powder, and that was it. And the kids loved it, and with these 2 puppets, just like Out of the Sound of Music.
Well, what kind of puppetry was it? The Piero type, or was it hand puppet?
It was it was all strings.
Oh right, yeah.
And I can remember performing at the Theatre Royal, and we had a stand-in Gretel, and a stand-in Hansel, because I was Gretel. I forgot who I was there for a minute, and we got entangled. And it was quite difficult to move. And I said, "Oh, Hansel, are you all right?" And he went, "Yes." And said, "Oh, well, you don't look all right to me."
I've often wondered how puppeteers can get entangled. Is it because you were getting entangled up
No,
in the
well, we were
camera?
over talking to each other, and maybe an arm can just cross another arm.
All right.
You
Okay,
see,
you
and
said
then if you try to untangle something else
that.
out, because you've got a real load of strings you're operating. You know, you've got them on the old cross post, but you're operating quite a number of strings when you've got them walking in and dancing and waving and talking and nodding their head and all that, you know.
Well, if that defence is good enough for the sheriff, Scottie, it's good enough for me.
Well, that was it. We got entangled, but the audience were in fits.
Well, hey, I was going to be talking about them.
And I think I ended up saying, "Let me help you out, Hansel." And I think a hand appeared round the side of the back cloth, you know.
That's a proper skill you've got there. That really is.
Oh, I'm not just an athlete, you know. I'm not just a black belt in karaoke.
The last time we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that 50% of people consume this show on their televisions.
Yes.
That got me thinking.
Yes.
I'm slightly concerned, Scottie. I hope they behave themselves while they're on their couches.
I hope they do. Absolutely, Tuxley. Yes. Now, what I was thinking, what you have to do to get it on your telly, if it's your smart speaker, you speak into your thing and you just say, "Scottie McClue Talk Show." Sometimes it comes up with some other Scottie and you have to do it again. And then you see me and you click on the little oval and then up comes the channel and there it is. And you just click on that because I think we've just hit the 35,000 subscribers. And we could do with 10 times that. And then you can sit back and just watch the movies as you would on your telly channel.
Well, if they're watching this phone in, I really, as I say, hope they're behaving themselves. Perhaps what we could do is maybe 5 seconds of dead air and then shout, "Keep it on and you're hating me.
Keep your on and you're hating me."
They're behaving themselves, you know what I mean? I think we need to keep the viewers decorum like the decorum that we all show in this.
Of course, proper decorum. But I'm very proud of it. People go, but your shows, you don't swear and all that, so nobody's going to watch it, you see. And I think, no. We're totally different from that. You watch your comedians, the F and Jeff, with the exception of the master, Billy Connolly, who got it right from the start, right? But you look at all your comedians now. Now, there's a very talented comedian, but he F's and Jeffs all the time. Now, what I find is they have a limited shelf life, right? I've now been in showbiz since I was about 9. So let's just say, for talking's sake, coming up 60 years. Now, that's quite a long time to still be talking to people. And I noticed when you're out, you were being very kind last week, but if you actually say to somebody, "Have you ever heard of Scottie McClue?" they usually go, "Oh, absolutely. How do you know him?" You see?
It's absolutely. You know, and speaking of stand-ups, thanks to the wonder of YouTube, I've recently been watching, you'll know him, and I'm absolutely sure you'll love him. You remember Dave Allen, the Irish comedian?
Absolutely adored the man.
So a lot of his stuff is available on YouTube, and it's still
absolutely adored the man. The Catholic Church were up in arms because he was taking the mince, you know.
Yeah,
and he really was taking them in, and it was very, very funny. And do you remember the dog's burial?
The dog's burial.
The dog's burial. It was a meeting of the dog club or something, and they were burying one of their members, and then they all turned round and kicked the earth in with their back feet, you know. And things like that. But he also, his stuff, although it was funny, it was based in truth. And he said when he was taken to a funeral, a Catholic funeral, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? And he as a wee one overheard that as the Father, the Son, and into the Holy Ghost. And it was a Catholic funeral, and this tiny wee guy, knee-high to a grasshopper, standing at a graveside. The Father, the Son, and into the Holy Ghost. You know, and that's what he thought was it. And then when he turned up first day at the little primary school, at the nunnery, you know, the father knocked on the door, the sister opened the door, and she looks at this wee thing, and she goes, "Oh, you're a very wicked boy." Yes, and you know what happens to wicked boys. And behind him, he could see Christ on the cross. And he thought, "Oh no, I don't want that." Poor little thing, you see. And I mean, it was all that. You're a sinner. I once on a show said about sinners, I said, "What if you've never sinned?" And this old Irish lady that used to phone us, she said, "What, Scottie? Nobody's never sinned." I said, "I haven't sinned." "You must have, Scottie." And she started to tell me about a place she called Pocketry, as if it was Pocketry, Pocketry. And of course, she was very Irish, and it was purgatory she was talking about. Your soul would end up in Pocketry.
Oh man, well I was brought up to be religious, and trust me, I know all about purgatory. It's usually Sunday morning at 9 o'clock.
And you're in Pocketry by the missus.
Yeah,
Mrs. Topsway puts you in Pocketry.
Oh, no, we're nicely recovering, both of us, Scottie. So, but you know, I don't know about you, but my conduct, and this is like a confessional, Scottie.
Yes.
You know, we're keeping the religious thing going.
Yes.
This is confession time.
Yes, carry on, my son.
Thank you. I require absolution, Father McClue. My conduct.
Oh, absolutely.
My conduct at funerals isn't very appropriate, because whenever there's an environment in which I'm expected and demanded to behave with the utmost seriousness, it always makes me misbehave. Not in a particular, you know, I don't jump in the hole, right? You know,
no.
But I find myself just making fast jokes as they occur to me. When my father died in 2006, I was walking my mum to the grave, and it was a sunny winter morning, and the artificial grass around the grave was steaming slightly. And he was Protestant, and my mum's Catholic. They had a Catholic funeral, thanks to her. And when the steam was coming up, I said to her, "Is that brimstone?" she still laughs about that.
Well, yes, because you see, I can remember when my father died, we were telling stories about his life. My mother and sister and I, we were in fits of laughter, gales of laughter, and people were coming to the house all the time. And my mother said, "Oh, for goodness sake, stop it. If somebody comes to the door, they'll wonder what kind of people we are." And I said, "And what kind of people are we, Mother?" You know, because my father was a great funster and a great laugh of a man, you know.
That's good.
And he used to tell stories. He would say, "They dug the grave a wee bit short, so I had to give the box a wee push with my foot." You know, and
because my mother's very active in our church, she actually there were 3 priests doing his funeral. And this was a guy that wasn't even Catholic. Well, I said to this because they needed 3 to push him up to heaven.
Well, I think really, when you're telling me all this, I think you behave exactly correctly at funerals. That's the thing.
That's very kind of you. I trust you'll understand if I attend you and I'm wearing like a clown mask or something like that.
Yes, I better not. Well, you can come to mine with a clown mask on. I'll not mind.
Hey, but you mentioned earlier. Oh, by the way, I'm going to stop up. You know, I'm always apologising for taking up time.
Yes, you should do. So you should. Yes.
You are what's known in the trade as a safe pair of hands, right? So what I'll do is I'm never going to apologise for that. You just let me know. You just let me know when it's time to go, and I won't take offence.
Don't apologise for anything. We're not in that business. You know what I mean?
Right.
I remember saying to somebody about apologising. I said, he said, well, you should never really do anything that you have to apologise for.
Well, if only that was my life, then everything would be so much better.
I remember once apologising when I used to take a refreshment, and you know, in the morning you get the screamers. You'd said this and said that, you know, all that, and I said, "Oh dear," I said, and he went, "Oh, forget that. Everybody's falling down with drink up here."
Well, it's like when you did the Scottie FM show, I would listen every night, and it was like people would actually complain, and it's like, what on earth are you listening for?
I know. Well, that was it. Well, my favourite one with that was the guy came on, and I said, "Hello, are you enjoying the show?" "Terrible show, terrible show." And I said, "Why? What's wrong with it?" You what's wrong with this show? And I said, "Do you not think it's a good show?" "Oh, it's a good show, but if they got a proper presenter."
Oh yeah, because there's such a shortage of radio phone-ins on British radio. Oh my goodness, guys! You know, honestly, why would I want to know what a taxi driver from Dartford cares about Keir Starmer? Why on earth do I need to know that?
You don't need to know it. What you need to know is what people care about people who do this or do that. You need to know is what people are up to, not politicians, not policemen, not taxi driver, just people. And that was the success of the Scottie FM show, because it was the people's show.
It really was, and I presume you had a team who would let these people through, because
we didn't have a team. It was the lovable lassie of the big switchboard when it was a lady, and it was the wizard of the big switchboard when it was a guy, and they did a fantastic job. And I insisted they put virtually everybody through, unless somebody was so drunk they were just swearing all the time. You know,
yes.
And that, like a guy from Liverpool one night said, "Are you enjoying the show?" "Oh, it's an effing great show, Scotty." And you know, I had to cut him off because I said, "We're guests in people's houses."
Was there a delay on the call?
Oh yeah, 7 seconds. We used to lift it out. It was great for all the wee guys that used to ring and swear, say to their pals, "Wait till you hear this," and they never heard anything.
Oh, if I'd only known, I'd have phoned up and then sweared constantly for 8 seconds.
They never. No, it had gone right away, you see, because they've gone. So that was it. So as soon as they said it, they've gone. Because most people, I mean, apart from some of the wee dafties we used to get, most people don't understand that there's some things you can't say in public. And I'm not just talking about swear words, talking about legal stuff, all that kind of thing, you know, and you just can't say it. So you do need to be able to get rid of that.
Well, this is your internet house, Scotty. So anybody who actually comes into your internet house should behave themselves.
They have to behave themselves. But the funniest one, I think I told you, was the guy on radio. I could hear as soon as he'd phoned, he goes like this. I said, "Are you smoking?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Right, put it out if you're going to talk to me." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Put it out with a no smoking show." And he said, "Oh, I've just sparked up." I said, "It doesn't matter." I said, "Are you talking to me or are you going? It's up to you." "I'll put it out, I'll put it out, I'll put it out." Right, so that was it. I said, "Right, what's your point?" Anyway, a guy phoned afterwards and they go, "What are you all about, Scotty? What are you all about?" I said, "What do you mean?" He went, "That guy was in his house." I said, "It doesn't matter where he was. We're a no smoking show. He was in his house." I said, "Look, we've got people listening who might have bad chests." And he goes like this, taps where he goes, "Ah, right enough."
That's that makes perfect sense. Yes.
He actually thought the smoke could come out his radio.
Now you're slightly concerning me. I hesitate to ask, but what's your policy on vaping?
I don't go for it at all. It was better than cigarette smoking, because in my day I've smoked cigarettes and I knew how easy it was to get hooked. That's why I've never ever touched other drugs, because I think it's so dangerous, so dangerous. So I eventually got off the cigarettes about 26 years ago, and never ever looked back. Once you get your mind right, and I never ever looked back, and I could have a refreshment and wasn't even interested, because when you're in refreshment, people you say, would you like one? Just a fag, it's not going to do you any harm, all that nonsense. One will not do you any harm, all that good stuff, and you think that's how it all starts. Anyway, that was that. But the vaping, I thought, of the electronic cigarettes they had for a while. But then I think, no, anything foreign in the lung that doesn't belong to the body is going to bring problems.
Yes. Well, we'll just draw a veil over that, because
you're a vapor. But
can I tell you that, get this, for rank stupidity, guess what age I was when I started smoking?
60.
40. 30.
Wow.
I've got an excuse. I was living in London. This was 1999, right. And I met a girl, unfortunately, in Edinburgh, and we went out for a year. She was a heavy smoker. Then my next girlfriend was Quebecoise, right, from French Canada, and I went over to Montreal for a year to live over there, and they all smoked like lungs. So when I came back after a year of that, I had no house, I had no job, I had no car, but a raging cigarette habit. So the vaping's managed. I love vaping.
What did you say your girlfriend in Canada was a smoker?
Oh, massive smoker. Everybody in Montreal, everybody in French Canada and Quebec all smoke.
Well, of course, crazy. France, I mean, we won't mention the facts, but France, you used to see the guys on their bike with a fag in the mouth all the time,
I must confess, I've actually done that in the past.
They were big smokers and all that. And I can remember a guy stopping. One of my friends was jogging, and a guy stopped and said, "Excuse me, Paul, would you have a light on you?" And he was jogging.
I work in. I can't give away my superhero identity, but
you mustn't.
I work quite frequently at various sheriff courts around the country.
Yes.
And I'll be outside, and quite often, despite vaping, I'll get asked for a light. But what they do is they go, "Oh, big man." Right? Now, that is Ned speak for fatty. Right?
Yes, big man. Yes.
Big man. Now, anybody who calls me big man is basically code for fatty. So whatever they're asking for, they are not getting.
They're absolutely not getting it. No. Very, very strange. Carry on. My favourite legal one, and names have been changed to protect the innocent, of course.
No names, no pack drill.
No names, no pack drill. And my favourite legal one was the Monday morning, and there's 3 senior lawyers sitting in the court, and his lordship sits down, court, and his lordship sits down, you see, and he looks over and he goes, "Morning, Mr. MacDonald," and he said, "I appear, my lord, for the prosecution." I said, "Thank you, Mr. MacDonald." "Mr. Anderson," he said, "I appear, my lord, for the defence." He said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson." "Mr. Petrie," and he says, "I appear, my lord, to be in the wrong courtroom."
Working in court, that's another environment where I just can't help myself sometimes making jokes. Never when there's parties in, never when members of the public are in. But it's such an awful environment, There's courts are designed to intimidate,
oh yes, well, you look back. I actually said I once went to fight a case The police said I'd gone through a red light and I hadn't. So I just fought the case and won it, right? Because I could see they weren't sure at all, but they'd started. And if had it been an experienced constable, he would have said, well, I'll let you off this time, but just be careful. You know what I mean? Because he would have said, I'm not sure if he went through it or no. But this wee guy was young and he kept up. Well, there's only one colour left, sir. I said, well, it certainly wasn't that one, was it? You see? So that was it. And the poor soul got demolished immediately because I'd put down yards, you see? And the police car was yards away. And he said to this constable, he said to the first constable, there was two of them, he said, this was down south, and he said, so what did you actually see, constable? He said, I didn't see anything. My colleague was dealing with it. He went, well, you may stand down, right? So that was one of them gone. Then the next one, he said, so Mr. McClue says about yards, and he said, how many feet are there in a yard? And then he went, I actually think I made a mistake about that. And he went, well, don't worry, constable, we all make mistakes. And then said, no further questions were on. So one of the policemen had seen nothing and the other had made a mistake. And that was it, and when the CPS stood up and said some stuff, then my boy stood up, he said, I bow to my friend's lack of knowledge and experience in these matters.
I remember that was years and years ago. I wasn't working on this case, but there was it was a small claims thing, so it was just a guy representing himself, and the other side, it was against a holiday website, so they had counsel, the guys with the wigs and the dicky-doos, right, against just this guy, and it was for about 800 quid. It was nothing, but they got counsel, and so the council tries to get it thrown out through process, like a legal loophole, and the sheriff leaned across the bench and said, Mr. Whatever, right, pay him the money. And that was it. Case closed. Try and wear the guy down with legal fees. The sheriff just cut right through it. It was absolutely brilliant. I felt like giving him a standing applause.
Well, apparently there was some wee coon was chewing gum when he was being sentenced. And his lordship said to the policeman, he said, tell that man to stop masticating. And he turned round and he said, the sheriff says you to take your hands in your pocket.
Hey, I was in one once, and the guy was, one of the parties to the case was surreptitiously recording it on his phone, and the clerk caught him, right? Now, this sheriff in particular, he's like Judge Dredd, man. You would not want to...
Don't cross the man.
You wouldn't want to cross him. And all the sheriff did, he just stopped us and he put his pen down, he thought for about 4 or 5 seconds, and then he just slammed his book shut and walked off the bench, right? And it's like, oh, you've done it now, boy. You have so done it now. He didn't say a word, he just shut the book and walked off to think of what particular punishment he was going to come up with.
Well, I saw a beauty. It was a sketch, and it was on one of the main platforms, but it's worthy of repeating. And the guy was up, and he said, "Why have you here today before me?" And he said, "I was parting a double yellow line." He said, "Right, I have no alternative but to sentence you to death. You'll be taken from this place to another place, and you will be executed, and may God have mercy on your soul." And the CPS guy went, "My lord, it's a minor traffic offence. There's a £2 fine." And he said, "Oh, and I forgot, you have to pay a £2 fine."
Fantastic. As I say, I've got a tendency to make inappropriate jokes in some places. Forgive me if I get a little bit distant. I'm just making myself a zesty beverage.
Ah, lovely, a beverage, yes indeed. My other favourite one is when the judge looks up and he said, "You are here in front of me today for the purpose of heavy drinking." And he said, right, my lord, let's get on with it.
Well, don't worry, Scottie. All I've got is it's a large glass, no names, no paragraph, a large glass of cola with the merest tincture of vodka. I mean, we're talking really homeopathic.
Oh yes, I think if we're homeopathic, it should stimulate a larger one.
Exactly. The cola has a vodka memory from the last time I drank it. So yes, we're
They have
absolutely good.
genetic memory of cola. Fantastic.
That's correct.
But no, I absolutely love all these. And of course, you'll be familiar with the old when the judge fixes the guy and he goes, "Have you been up before me before?" He said, "I don't know, my lord. What time do you get up?"
Oh, just another quick, as I say, just stop me whenever, right? But just to swing back to something you were saying earlier, Shatner, William Shatner, right?
Yes, fantastic.
What a man. Do you know he did a film in, I think it was the early 60s, entirely in Esperanto?
Interesting. Wow. Yes, absolutely.
The made-up language. It was a created language for the future European harmony. It was created in the 50s. An entire language. Nobody ever saw. Tony Benn spoke it, right?
Tony Benn was the most remarkable man. I got to meet him, and I've got a friend. Yes, and I've got a friend that knew him very, very well and was at his funeral and everything. But he was a remarkable man. I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I think his mother was from Greenock. But anyway, I got to speak to him, and he was just such a delight. And of course, he was actually, if anybody could believe in socialist principles, it would have been through somebody like Tony Benn, because he really knew stuff. We don't have people of that caliber. I look at things now, right? I'll take a look at, say, today's prime ministers, because we've had a good old selection, and I'll think, how close are they to Churchill, or to Gladstone, or to Disraeli? You know what I mean? Or to H.H. Asquith.
Politicians just now, once again, no names, no piedro.
No.
But you can actually see their craven cowardice. You see certain politicians just this last week doing a handbrake turn, and now everything's really positive and everything's groovy.
Well, whatever anybody thinks of Donald Trump, watch the man's modus operandi and think, do we have that? If we had that in this country would suddenly blossom. All your country houses, your people wouldn't be taxed to bits. We would be selling our gas and electricity to enrich Scotland, and our wind and wave power and all that. We'd be digging for gas. We'd be returning tax to the people. We'd be educating our students for nothing. All that sort of stuff. Back to how this country actually was. I can remember education, and we've got to say thank you. In fact, somebody said, "Oh, I wanted to go to university." Well, don't worry, you'll get a grant. Now, it didn't seem a lot, but to be quite honest, if you were staying with your mum and dad, and you had a grant, you could afford yourself a Friday lunchtime,
When I first became a student in the early 90s, I could still get some money. And the thing is, I seem to have had a great life.
Yes.
But it wasn't a lot of money. But
you could take a £5 out on a Monday morning. And I spoke to somebody who's a year older than me, and he was at Aberdeen, and he said he did this too. You took a £5 out on a Monday morning, and you didn't go near the cash machine till Friday afternoon.
Yeah, well, they used to refer to them at Strathclyde University. Used to refer to pound coins as beer tokens.
A beer token, yes. And I don't know if you might be too young for this, but in the pubs in roundabout where you're talking, right in the city centre, they still had snugs in some of them, and you could go into a little snug with your pals. Nobody knew who was in there. And you sat talking all sorts of nonsense. And I can remember laying off in 1980 about Sir Thomas Lipton. Lipton's the grocers, and said Tommy Lipton was a pal of the King's. And I was telling them all this. Anyway, I'd broken the seal, so I got up to nip to the loo, knocked the table with my foot, and my beer splashed. So did everybody else. It's just a wee splash, as you do. And I heard him back. This guy came back and he went, "Oh, who was that?" And he went, "It was him, and he's Tommy Lipton." Because we used to have some really, really intellectual chats in the pub.
Yeah, well, we've still got, you know, I live at Queen's Park at Glasgow, and there are some traditional, they've been upgraded but not changed, so there are still snugs in several pubs around here. It's really, really lovely.
Wonderful. We love it. Totswahi, we'll leave it there, and we'll have a catch up soon, and it's been an absolute privilege as always talking to you. You're a great man.
I just realised the time. I have to. I know. No, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it again. Right, but take care.
Never ever apologise to McClue, or I have to apologise to you.
Okay, right. Take care.
See you later. There we are. That's our tops here. Excellent stuff. Now then, what have I got here? Hold on. Stick with me. There we go. Now, a catch up here. Numpty Head says, "Do you accept reverse call charges, Scotty?" Numpty Head. So there we go. I tell you. Well done, Scotty. Also, your rant on the big hussies. Enjoyed the stories of how the money's not kept in Britain. I've just bought a wee house, but the lawyers make loads for the so-called exchange. Yes. John Doe. His impersonation of the Reverend Ian Paisley is legend. I tell you, it's been a fun show with Scottie and Tutswahi. Susan, yes, absolutely. The Scottie and Tutswahi show. Well, we did talk about it. And, you know, who have we got? You're live on Scottish Phone In. Who's that?
It's the lovable Numpty Head, but you can call me lovable.
Lovable Numpty Head, how are you? The wizard of the big switchboard.
Absolutely. Now, Scotty, are you listening to me?
Of course we're listening to you. Everybody listens to you.
When you were talking nonsense with Tutswahi,
yes.
you came up with when you said you heard somebody having a puff on the radio, kind of.
Yes.
And you said, "Are you smoking?" And he said, "Aye." Now, Scotty, you just reminded me of something, and I'm going back maybe 60s, 70s, even before my time.
Aye.
Television presenters, when they interviewed, they used to sit there with a fag in their hand. Can you remember?
Now, you'll not be able to go back to when John Freeman used to interview, and he interviewed Gilbert Harding, and Gilbert Harding talked about his mother, and then it brought tears to his eyes, and he was coughing. He was not coughing, he was really upset, and he just took out a fag and lit it. And also you had comedy programs when they used to smoke on the telly.
Aye, that's what I mean, Scotty, you know. Smoking was seen as a natural part of life.
Absolutely. Listen, the doctors at the time, the doctors smoked, and you said, "Well, I do a bit of smoking, a mild antiseptic, you know, this kind of stuff."
Aye. Anyway, now Scotty, I was going to say this. Now, things that happened 2,000 years ago, do you think we should be getting sued today for what our ancestors go up to 2,000 years ago?
No, you can't apologize. It's like the slavery thing, right?
Right.
And then you've also got to balance the slavery thing. Britain led the emancipation of the slaves, but what did these poor souls do when they had no plantation to turn up to, no employer, and nobody to feed them? Because a good employer that had employees, shall we call them, on their plantation would be seeing that would be looking after them and seeing they were fed and watered.
Indeed. Now, Scotty, I'm thinking ahead here, right? 2,000 years' time.
Yes.
A single mother comes across one of your videos.
Yes.
And she gets upset.
Yes.
At what you say.
Yes.
Can she sue you?
No. Because nobody's got any right to ever get upset at anything I say, because it's not said to upset them.
So why are people being sued for what happened 2,000 years ago? Because it's no matter. How do we can that happened 2,000 years ago? It's only somebody's lived.
Well, it might be I mean, you've got the word, which you cannot change. That's the word, based on the commandments.
We're in 2,000 years' time. If you're on tape saying things, at least they've got evidence, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, that evidence, you see, how can I put it this way? My defense would be you cannot give offense, you would have to take it. So the onus is on the offense taker to prove what their problem is. So you could get other evidence on the offense taker and say, yes, but you were brought up with that. So that's why it triggered you.
Aye. Anyway, listen,
but as I've always said, you know, and you think back to Scott FM, it's up to people whether to listen or not. What were they doing listening if they were going to be taking offence?
Well, Scotty, the only thing decent in people's lives back then was having McClue on the wireless. So whether they liked you or no, they still put up there.
And remember, we used to put out subjects to raise the tone, to raise it for the people. So if I'd gone on and said, oh, I'm so sorry for the nurses, they're only on 20 grand, right?
Aye.
Nobody would have phoned. But if I said, I'm thinking of becoming a nurse because they're on big money and it's an easy life, every nurse under the sun phoned, and we got the conditions for nurses. They told us what it was like. So the nurses had their day on the radio.
Well, let me tell you a wee secret, Scotty. My mother used to be an auxiliary nurse way back in the 80s and the 90s. And she used to do the knitting.
Yes.
She used to go away for the night shift and she'd come back with half a jumper.
Oh, fantastic.
So
how did she know my size?
She sees that's a big man, that's Scottie McClue.
Fantastic. No, there we go. I tell you.
Scottie, on a sad note, just before I go.
Right, my boy.
Sad to say that Dino left us on the 13th of December.
I am so sorry. We love Dino, but I am so glad he will not suffer any discomfort. And Dino had the loveliest life because he got to spend it with you.
And you as well, Scottie, was a famous Dino the Duck, you know.
Dino the Duck? Everybody knew Dino the Duck?
We were together for 14 years.
Wonderful. Well, here's a wee bit of consolation. He will now be running about with Lord Reith behind me there and Clyde at Rainbow Bridge.
Oh, he's got loads of pals.
And they will love him. The wee tail will be going non-stop.
Absolutely.
Bless him. Thank you to Dino and thank you to you for giving him such a beautiful life.
And thanks to Dino for being there, because my life wouldn't be the same if he wasn't.
We thank Dino and I love you lots. And you take great care.
Right, yes, Scottie.
Thank you for telling us, Dinky-Doo. What was the date? What was the date?
13th of December.
13th is just before. All right. Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Right, we'll need to give that a wide berth next time. Love you.
Absolutely. Right, Scottie.
Dinky-Doo. Ta-ra-la. Our numpty head. And we Dino the Dug. He was an absolute star. I mean, everybody in Scotland knew Dino the Dug. Because Numpty Head would tell us when he came on. Guys, I cannot believe this, but sadly, we are out of time. Doesn't mean I don't love you, because I do. And we're going to have to say thank you so much for watching. And a massive, massive Dinky-Doo to every single one of you. Till we all meet again, God bless you. Jerry says, my mate had a Yorkie called Dino. He lived till 20. God bless Dino. Sad news, says John Doe. Yes, indeed. Oh, really, says Jerry. And there we are. And thanks to Tups for Hay for a great call. Every single one of you, God bless. Ta-ra, lads, stick your tongue out. Ta-ta. Last chance. Ta-ta. Ta-ta.